מזמור גימל. בשם השם נעשה ונצלח. So I have printouts here for everybody. Let's read the Mizmor quickly, and we're going to have to have a very fundamental introduction to the Mizmor, Bezat Hashem. Mizmor Gimel. Says David HaMelech, Mizmor LeDavid, Bevarcho mipnei Avshalom beno. So I'm just going to ask a few questions, and then we'll try and answer them later. First thing, many times in Tehillim, we see David HaMelech starts his Mizmor with the word Mizmor LeDavid. At other times he says LeDavid Mizmor. So in the past we mentioned a fundamental difference. Today we'll see the Gemara inside. Bezat Hashem. What's the difference when he says Mizmor LeDavid and when he says LeDavid Mizmor? And also, if we want to learn in the proper manner, we have to understand why he chose these specific words after we understand the difference between Mizmor LeDavid and LeDavid Mizmor. So why is it that that idea relates to this Mizmor, and that question really would replay itself on any Mizmor in Tehillim? Yeah? So that's question number 1 and 2. Why Mizmor LeDavid? What's the difference between Mizmor LeDavid and LeDavid Mizmor? And why specifically in this Mizmor did he open with these words? Bivorcho mipnei Avshalom beno. When he's chased by Avshalom, his son. So who was Avshalom? What happened with him? Why was he chasing him? What's going on here? And why is he singing songs? Your son's chasing you, you start singing.
Well, clearly this is not him speaking.
Who?
David.
Why not?
Because he's referring to himself in the third person.
So actually the Gemara we're going to see asks if David wrote Tehillim as a personal thing, if he's writing it in the name of all of Am Yisrael, or the third opinion is both. I've mentioned already, Rabbi Nachman and Resev have said this many times. He explains that in any given Mizmor you open, they were all written Beruach HaKodesh, like we'll see, and therefore any Jew who opens that Mizmor could find his personal afflictions and difficulties and struggles in his daily life in the words that you just opened, no matter what Mizmor it is. So here he's talking about himself for sure, but also he's addressing all of Am Yisrael.
So this is him talking.
This specific Mizmor is a personal event that went through his life, a terrible tragedy he went through, and he's going to speak about it. So he's definitely referring to himself and the pshat of the Mizmor for sure. Okay, let's just read the Mizmor. Adonai ma rabu tzarai. Hashem, how numerous are my tormentors. Tzarai, the word tzara means my struggles, but tzarai are those who cause me to struggle or put me through anguish, those who torment me.
Because the other one would be tzarot.
Right. Or tzara is when a person is being afflicted, going through a tragedy, a plague. Rabim kamim alai. Many, numerous are the people who stand up against me.
Amen. That's
the pshat. But we're going to see that Rashi's going to explain differently. Later we'll go into Rashi and we'll get the deeper interpretation. Rabim omrim lenafshi en yeshuata lo be'elohim sela. Many say to me, lenafshi is really my soul. En yeshuata lo, there's no Yeshua, no salvation. There's no way God will be there to bring him salvation. Be'elokim sela. So notice the word choice here is Elokim, the name of judgment. And Rabim Omrim, this David is not saying about himself. He says others are saying about me. People are saying towards me or about me, about my soul. En Yeshuata lo be'elohim sela. God will not be there for him. That's what people are saying about David HaMelech. What does that mean? What happens?
His family here? He's talking about his family?
His family? Okay, could be his family. Why his family? What do you mean?
Like they outcast him.
His brothers.
And kind of his parents too. Or his father.
Okay, very good. But do we see that he's addressing, if we see that he's talking about, in this Mizmor, about his brothers, right, he's saying everybody. And everybody's saying about him, God will not be there to bring him salvation.
Wow, interesting.
So when we understand, you have to know that in every Mizmor of Tehillim, it has a theme. It's a Mizmor that he wrote. It's a chapter. It's everything from beginning to end ties in of this Mizmor. On a deeper level, you could learn why each Mizmor is connected or adjacent, juxtaposed to the next Mizmor, which is not what we're going to be doing. But there obviously is a clear message in everything, why it was written there, why this Mizmor proceeded, why this one came after. But for sure in one Mizmor there's a theme to it that we have to try and figure out what that theme is. And that's why I wanted to just read the Mizmor so you get a look, and then before we go to the introductions, just so we get a broad look on the entire Mizmor. But he says, other people are saying, a lot of people are saying about me, God will not be there to save him. So what did he do? What went wrong? Why are people saying that about him? And he's quoting that people are telling him, give up, you have no hope. No chance, God's not going to be there for you. V'ata Adonai magen ba'adi. But now the Bimya says what he thinks and how his perspective is on things. Ata Hashem, he changes from the word Elokim to the word Yud Ke Vav Ke. Magen ba'adi. You are my shield, you are my protector. Kevodi umerim roshi. So although the word kevodi literally means you are my honor, the Mefarshim here explain that it's my soul. And a person's soul is addressed as honor because the real glory and honor of a person is his neshama. The chelik haruchani sheba, his spiritual aspect, that's called kevodi. So meaning you protect my soul. Hashem, you are my shield. Kevodi umerim roshi. You are my honor, my glory, and you raise my head from all those who try to put my head down. You uplift my head. Koli el Adonai yekra, my voice calls out to God. Vaya'aneni, Hashem answers me. Mehal kodsho Selah, he answers me from the holy mountain Selah. What does the word Selah mean?
Stone, no, rock.
Also a rock, very good, but it means for eternity, forever. The Radak here explains that the word Selah is a type of tomb that the Vinach would sing his songs in. It was like a makam, as if you say. So it was meaning that he would sing this. This is a song I would always sing. That's what the Radak explains.
That's a famous song, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sing it.
Play it for you. I forget how it goes. It's a very famous Karloff song.
Okay, very good.
I'll play it after.
Alright. Ani shachavti vayishana. I went to sleep. I laid down and I fell asleep. Hakitzoti, I wake up. Ki Adonai yismecheni. So on the second time around the Mizmor, we're going to touch up on that. But what does that mean? I went to sleep. What do I care? You lay down, you went to sleep. I woke up because God, you will be there to support me. Yismecheni. When someone could lean on something, and yismoch ala teva. When you're praying, the Shulchan says, don't lean. Right, don't get support from the table when you're leaning on it. Don't let it hold you up. So Hashem, you are the one who holds me up. You support me. Lo ira merevivot am. I'm not worried of the many, and revivot are tens of thousands of nations, of people, meaning that it's not just one enemy here. He's talking about a whole bunch of enemies against him. Asher saviv shatu alai. Which, saviv, they surround me, shatu alai. So what does that mean? They come against me. Rashi brings here two pshats of what the word shatu means, but the simple pshat is that they come close to me. Kum Adonai Hoshieni, Hashem, stand up, so to speak, and help me, be my salvation. Elohai, my God, ki kita et kol oivai lehi. Hashem, you strike all my enemies on the cheek. Shinei reshaim shibarta, the teeth of the wicked you broke. L'Adonai Yeshua, salvation is only in the hands of God. Alamecha bechatecha sela. Good, very simple Mizmor, right? Okay, now let's understand what's going on here. You ready? You got your seatbelt? Let's do this. So if we're open to your cheat sheets, it's right here, the line starts with the word V'Yisrael. Tanu Rabbanan. You see where the two dots are? You got it?
Yeah.
Tanu Rabbanan. This is a Gemara Psachim, Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Tanu Rabbanan, our sages taught in the Braita. Kol shirot v'tishbochot she'amar David. All of the songs and praises that David Amelech said, B'Sefer Tehillim, מחלוקת תנאים. רבי אליעזר אומר, כנגד עצמו המרן. Rabbi Eliezer says he's saying it about himself on a personal level. There are things that he experienced, he went through his life, and he's writing just about himself. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Keneged Tzibur Amaran. He said it in regards to the entire congregation.
Rabbi Yeshua?
Rabbi Yeshua.
That's Aleph.
What?
It's Resh Aleph.
Resh is Rabbi Eliezer.
I read that one already. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Keneged Atzmo Amaran.
Oh, I'm
sorry. In regards to himself. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Keneged Tzibur Amaran. Meaning he said it for everybody. It's not a personal thing. He said it in the name of all of Klal Yisrael. V'chachamim omrim, our sages disagree and say, yesh behem keneged tzibur, v'yesh behem keneged atzmo, and yesh behem keneged atzmo. So it depends. Some were personal, and others are, he's saying in third person, not about himself, rather about all of Klal Yisrael. Ha'amurot b'shon yachid, if it's said in personal, in singular tense, keneged atzmo, then he's speaking about himself clearly. Ha'amurot b'shon rabim, keneged tzibur. Right? You got it? So some are personal, some are in the name of Allah Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Nitzuach v'nigun la'atid lavo. Whenever he says lemenatzeach, or he says lemenginiot, right? Whenever he starts, there's 10 types of mizmorim in Tehillim. Whenever, this is a very important rule. If we're going to be studying the book of Tehillim, we have to remember these klalim. Now, it's important to learn Tehillim and Pshat just like we did. But when you learn Tehillim through the eyes of Chazal and the ashkafa of Chazal, their outlook and their perspectives, you get a whole another insight of the words of Tehillim, and you understand a way deeper meaning of what David HaMelech said. More than that, David HaMelech wrote Tehillim, like we'll see now, through Ruach HaKodesh, the divine presence of God upon him, and Chazal also had Ruach HaKodesh. So when they come and explain, they have a Kabbalah of what David HaMelech really meant. So that's greater than any commentator in the world, with all due respect to any rabbi in the world, and all the more so if it's a secular source commenting on Tehillim. But when you have the Pirush of Chazal, it doesn't get any better than that. So they say, Chazal teach us, whenever Mizmor starts with a Menatzeach or Ben Nigun, that's not something that happened in the past, it's not something in the present, it's a future Mizmor. It's Ruach HaKodesh saying what's going to happen in the future. It's me'en nevuah. It's a prophecy on something that's going to happen. Yeah? Maskil al-yedei turgeman. So whenever it says maskil etan, many times it doesn't say maskil David. Sometimes it does. But maskil is referring to somebody else. Somebody else said this mizmor. Le David mizmor. So this is what we wanted to see. We have le David mizmor and sometimes mizmor le David. לדוד מזמור מלמד ששרתה עליו שכינה ואחר כך אמר שירה. So if it first says the word לדוד and then מזמור, so this was who David HaMelech was. It's interesting why, meaning first he had Ruach HaKodesh and he said the entire mizmor through Ruach HaKodesh. Good? Joe, you got it?
Some of them he didn't have Ruach HaKodesh?
No, but we're going to see what the difference is. Good question. The Gemara continues and says, you got what that is? Le David Mizmor means, first it's Le David, meaning he has Ruach HaKodesh, Mizmor. And he started the song. Mizmor Le David, says the Gemara, Melamed she'amar shira, ve'achar kach shata alav shechina. What does that mean?
So first he sang and then the Rosh Hashanah came to him?
Yes. So he felt that he didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. So what did he have to do? He had to sing. And through singing, he was able to tap into Ruach HaKodesh, and then he said the Mizmor. So, two things we see from here. First of all, we see that all of Tehillim was written through Ruach HaKodesh, which we should know already, because it's Tanakh. But it was all words of the Shekhinah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, speaking through David HaMelech. So it's not his personal words. Obviously, he was a very holy vessel, which it uplifts the words coming through someone who went through the lifestyle he went through, and is able to say such inspiring words. But they were all said through Ruach HaKodesh. Other than that, sometimes he didn't have that Ruach HaKodesh, so in order to reach that and to get to that, he had to sing. He had to sing Mizmorim. To take out his oud or whatever instrument he had, and he had a kino, a harp, and he would start playing music, and through that music he would reach a very high spiritual state of mind, and the Shekhinah would rest upon him, which is a beautiful thing. So the Gemara says, Lilamdecha, which comes to teach us, She'en ha-Shekhinah shora lo mitoch atzlut, velo mitoch atzvut, velo mitoch sechok, velo mitoch kalut rosh. Meaning that the Shekhinah, Hashem's divine presence, does not rest upon a person who is lazy. Velo mitoch atzvut, neither someone who is sad, depressed. Velo mitoch schok, or when someone is joking in an, obviously this is not, it doesn't mean that he's happy. It means that he's mocking and he's joking around in an inappropriate way. Velo mitoch kalut rosh, someone who's lightheaded. Velo mitoch dvarim betelim, and neither when he speaks idle words, words of nonsense, words of no real value. Ela mitoch dvar simcha shel mitzvah. Rather, they only come through words of simcha, of happiness, of a mitzvah. Shneimar, how do we learn this? This is a pasuk in Melachim Bet. Vata kechu li menagen, va'kenagen ha-menagen, vatihi alav yad Hashem. So, the Navi says that he was unable to have the divine presence of Hashem. What do you have to do? You have to grab an instrument, and he said, once you start playing the instrument, only then will I have the Ruach HaKodesh.
Well, he brought this, he didn't say bring the instrument, he said bring the player of the instrument.
Right. Again, once
when the guy plays the instrument,
right, I will then have the Shekhinah. So actually, it's just because it's this week's parasha. I don't know if one of you have it. It's the last page. Kobe has it, I think. I'll put it after. This was in Parashat Vayeshev. The Torah says, after Yaakov Avinu hears that his sons, that Yosef is dead, it says, Vayikra Yaakov simlotav, vayasem sak bemotnav, vayit'abel al beno yamim rabim. What does Yaakov Avinu do? He rips his cloak, his garment, vayasem sak bemotnav. He wears sackcloth, and he mourned for the death of his son, yamim rabim, 22 years to be exact. He mourned. Vakumu chol banav v'chol benotav lenachamo. All of his sons and daughters, everybody comes to comfort him. Vayima'en leitnahem. He refuses to receive any condolences. He doesn't want to hear it from anybody. He doesn't want to accept anything. No one was able to comfort him. Vayoma ki yered el beni avel she'ola, vayefk oto aviv. And his father cried for him. Whose father?
Yaakov's father.
Yaakov, very good. It doesn't mean that the father of Yosef. Yaakov's father, Yitzhak Avinu, cried for Yaakov. Why?
Because he knew that this was going to happen.
So the Sfona, look over here, I marked up the Sfona. First of all, why is Yaakov Avinu not...
He couldn't tell him.
What do you mean?
He knew, you're saying?
He had a very good, you'd imagine that he had an understanding what's going to happen, and he can't tell his son.
Beautiful. So Yitzhak Avinu had Ruach HaKodesh, beautiful. And he knew in Ruach HaKodesh what happened to Yosef. And he said if Hashem didn't tell
share with Yaakov that
share with Yaakov, I'm not going to share you. Beautiful. That's what Rashi HaKadosh writes. And
I didn't think about that. Wow.
So Yitzhak Avinu knew, but he said I can't tell him. So why is he crying?
Because he sees his son in pain and he wants it, but he can't tell him.
Very good. So
that also would be happiness too.
Why?
I know that's crazy, but it may almost be like a nachat from your kids in the sense that like Yaakov was so attached to Yosef, he knew he wasn't dead. Even if he didn't consciously like crystallize the thought, he didn't say, "Oh, I know he's dead," but his neshama was so clear.
Right.
You're not finishing the morning. He's not dead.
She writes that's why he didn't cry just for a year and forget about it. The fact that he was alive was the reason that he was able to continue mourning. Because it's a gezerah of Hashem, it's mercy of Boreolam.
That's a crazy idea.
That he created forgetfulness in order to soothe a person's pain. Imagine a person having the same sorrow the moment they hear a tragedy and it just doesn't go away. The ability to forget, really that's the main reason Chazal say Hashem created the attribute of forgetting so that a person could forget his pain at the moment it strikes him. and he could be comforted. And here he wasn't comforted.
Idea.
Here he wasn't comforted.
Right.
And she writes, because it's gzera she'amet mishtakeach achei shana. Yud bet chodesh, person obviously doesn't forget completely.
He's able to continue life.
Right. But here he wasn't. 22 years. So Yaakov Avinu went on 22 years be'atzvut without Shekhinah. Literally 22 years, which is crazy. Look at this phone now. Look at this incredible phone. Pasuk Lamedei. Vayima'en leitlahem me'en lishmoa divrei tanchumim kedei shelo la'avir da'aga melibo. Why did Yaakov Avinu refuse to accept any comforting from his kids? He says this phone, mi'en lishmoa divrei tanchumim. He refused to accept comforting. Kedei shelo la'avir da'aga melibo. He didn't want to get the worry that he had. He was worried about something. He was very bothered about something incredibly. And he said, I don't want to forget this. So he accepted upon himself eternal mourning. Why? Continue. Yaakov Avinu accepted upon himself to mourn the rest of his life for the loss of Yosef. Why? Because the fact that Yosef, he thought, died and didn't come back, that was caused through him sending him to go check up on his brothers. He said, Lech re'eh b'shlom achecha. Go make peace with them. And he knew that the brothers hated him. So he felt that maybe he made a mistake, and this mistake was caused because of his action, his sin, or some type of sin he might have done with raising his son. Of course, on his own level, he felt maybe he did a mistake. And therefore, what did he say? And he accepted upon himself mourning the rest of his life. Look at how much responsibility he felt for the fact that he knew he had a guarantee that if all of his sons will be alive, as long as he dies before them, then his mitah is shelema. Right? That's actually what we pray before we go to sleep in Kriyat Shema Mitah. Ve'yeh mitati shelema lefanecha. What does that mean? My bed should be complete before you. I should have a nice, comfortable pillow and blanket, and it should be cozy. That's what you pray for, right? Good. That's not what we were saying. What does it mean? Sheyeh mitati shelema lefanecha. Yaakov Avinu was zocheh, first out of the three avot. That's why he's the bechir of the avot. Shayta mitato shelema. His bed is referring to his offspring. Right? So his offspring, he was the first to have 12, or all of his kids go b'derech Hashem. Not one straight off the ways of Hashem, out of the avot. Abraham had Ishmael, Yitzhak had Esav, and Yaakov was the first. So here he thought he lost it. The fact that he knew his son died, and he accepted upon himself eternal mourning, which is a crazy concept. And listen to these words of this phono. Vayevko to Aviv, his father cried for him. Yitzhak cried. Bacha al shekibel alav beno avenut lekol yamav. He cried. Why? Because he knew his son accepted upon himself for the rest of his life to mourn. And Yitzhak mourned and cried about that. He understood that his son had to do what he had to do. Even though his son knew that this mourning was going to cause him to lose Shekhinah the rest of his life. Which is, we don't understand what Kabbalat Pnei Shekhinah is, but Yaakov Avinu probably did. And even though he knew that, and he was accepting this upon himself, he lost Shekhinah because of this Kabbalah he accepted.
But it's so interesting. The sugya is incredible.
It is really. This is going to connect to the Mizmor, and I know we're not off topic. We're about to get right back on topic. But yes.
No, I was going to say that. Like I don't know. Something just feels here like he wasn't mourning for his death. Like there's just no way that Yaakov Avinu didn't know something else was up. There's just no way that Yaakov Avinu would go so clearly and blatantly negate a concept of Shemayim or Torah, like you're not supposed to mourn forever. It's not the way of Yehudim. And there's no, it can't be. There's just no way. Like he obviously felt or knew or consciously or subconsciously like he was mourning for something else.
I'll tell you, this isn't this is a spiritual sense of mourning. He's mourning. He had a Kabbalah from his avot that his 12 sons are going to be his successors, and they're going to be the Yud Bet Shvatim. doesn't have the Shvatim. Yosef's not married. He doesn't have a continuation. He literally thinks that the whole legacy that he was given in the bracha of his father, not in Vaitan Lecha. Vaitan Lecha was a physical bracha. Of course, there's a lot of spiritual bracha to it. That was a more physical type of bracha. But right before he left, Rashi HaKadosh writes that he passed over the bracha that Avraham Avinu was given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem gave to Avraham. Avraham gave that legacy over to Yitzchak. Yitzchak gave it over to Yaakov.
And when did he give that to Yosef? Before
he didn't give it over yet.
So
he thought he was. He will in next week's parasha. He gives it over to Yosef. Rashi writes it. The Or HaMekadosh writes it.
When he comes back.
When he sees the Ephraim and Manasseh, and it says Vayavech Yosef Vayomar, and it doesn't say what he said. Or HaMekadosh there points out that he passed over the legacy to Yosef.
So on a human level, and I know this is a little bit above basic human tendencies and situations, but Yaakov, the brothers come back to Yaakov with a bloody coat. And a minute ago, he knew and everyone knew and Yosef knew how much hatred there was between themselves. And you're telling me that Yaakov didn't think for a minute, something's up here with this story. Like, it's just not possible.
So, I have a lot to say about it, and it was part of last week's Shabbat class, and it's going to be next week's Shabbat class also.
I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Also, in regards to why did Yosef not tell Yaakov, and what happened after? How did Yaakov, when everything unfolded, and he got to Egypt, in this week's parasha we'll see.
Didn't ask what's up.
He didn't ask what happened. We don't find anywhere in the Torah that he asked to figure out what happened. He meets Yosef, and that's it, life goes on. What do you mean, 22 years, you had no Shekhinah, 22 years he was depressed, 22 years he mourned, and all of a sudden you get the greatest news, you find Yosef, and you live in Egypt, hey, what happened?
And the craziest part of that is that obviously it's not necessarily part of the teshuvah process for either of them, Yosef or the brothers.
So that's
if it was, it would have been listed.
It's an important topic you're bringing up. We'll discuss. But the point I wanted to bring out here is that we see Yaakov Avinu is going through 22 years of mourning, and he accepted that upon himself, even though it was a big price he had to pay for the loss of his son. So we see the concept that Shekhinah cannot be when a person is mourning and a person is sad or depressed. And in Parashat Vayigash, this week's parasha, you don't have this, but I'm just going to read it 1 second quickly. Vayigidu lo lemor. The brothers go to Yaakov Avinu and they tell him, Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive, V'chi hu Moshe b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, vayafag libo ki lo hemin lahem. He didn't believe him. He was like numb to what they said. Yeah, no way. Vayidabu elav et kol divrei Yosef. They spoke to him all the words of Yosef. Asher diber alehem. Vayar et ha'agalot. He sees the wagons that Yosef sent. Asher shalach Yosef, that were sent directly by Yosef. Laset oto, to come and bring him. Vatehi ruach Yaakov avihem. Rashi HaKadosh writes, Sharta alav shechina shepirsha mimeno. What does it mean? The spirit of Yaakov was revived, the Shekhinah came back. So, first of all, that's another episode we have to learn in depth. Why is it that when they said he didn't believe, all of a sudden he sees the wagons, he gets revived, he gets enthusiasm, and the spirit of Yaakov comes back. And this isn't just the spirit of Yaakov. It means the Shekhinah comes back to him after a 22-year break, which is a huge break, to literally Bechir Ha'avot, which is a concept that is mind-blowing to understand. He lost the Shekhinah for 22 years. But we see how important it is that Shekhinah does not rest upon a person who is going through sadness, who is suffering. So, what's the difference? What do we take out of this Gemara that we learned in Pesachim? Mizmor LeDavid and LeDavid Mizmor. What's the difference?
One starts with Rosh HaKodesh, and then he sings. The other one he sings, and then the Ruach HaKodesh comes to him afterwards. Beautiful.
So which is which? Which one? How do we know if David started with Ruach HaKodesh, or if he had to bring Ruach HaKodesh?
The David Mizmor he started with Ruach HaKodesh.
Beautiful.
Mizmor David he starts the singing, and then it comes to him.
Very good. So let's just stop for 1 second. Let's understand why is that the difference. Why is it not the other way around? Chazal are teaching us a very important foundation here. Why is it that the words LeDavid Mizmor allude more to the fact that he had Ruach HaKodesh initially than the words Mizmor LeDavid?
Like Pshat?
Yeah?
Seems pretty obvious.
Bechavod?
Mizmor LeDavid. means that he sang his way into Ruach HaKodesh, and David Mizmor means that his Ruach HaKodesh brought him into that state.
Beautiful, very good, very simple. Hazak Baruch. So here in our Mizmor,
you thought it was a trick question.
No, no.
So I let you answer.
Booby trap here.
Also, no, it's simple, but you have to say it. So the question is, what Mizmor do we have here? How does it start? Mizmor le David, right? Okay, so what does that mean?
It wasn't in like a natural rule. He had to sing his way in.
Very good. So he's about to sing his way into Ruach HaKodesh. So why do you think he didn't have Ruach HaKodesh?
Talking about
Sad.
some gloomy stuff here.
That's the go-to answer, right? We just saw the Gemara said immediately that that the Shekhinah doesn't rest upon a person when he's not in his complete state of happiness. So the Gemara is clearly teaching that when it's Mizmor le David, alright, you already know a yesod about this Mizmor, that he had to sing to awaken himself a little bit, and he wasn't in the greatest of moods when the Mizmor started. What is incredible is that clearly he was able to uplift himself to a state not like Yaakov Avinu was at, which is a whole other topic to understand how that. Well, we pretty much explained that Yaakov accepted this upon himself based on the Sfono, but he had to overcome the difficulty he was going through. This is a very important yesod. The word Mizmor le David, the first word, you see Mizmor le David, you know we're going through a difficult time of the next life. First of all, he was a human being. The Rambam has a book called Shmona Perakim, and he writes that the greater a person is as an Eved Hashem, the more sensitive he becomes. So if we all think that David was Superman and had no feelings, then we are ignorant people and we don't understand. Of course, he felt and he had pain, and he experienced pain on the greatest level a human being in this.
There's no other character in the Torah that had this one. Maybe Yaakov, actually.
Everybody had. There's so many, but you found a nice pirush there?
I'm saying to my brother-in-law, sorry.
So share it with us.
No, keep going.
Why? Share it.
No, that when he was, I'll tell, when we get up to the topic of this, I'll tell you.
Okay. So, Mizmor le David is, he's coming to uplift himself and he's going through a terrible, very, very difficult time. So already in the first pasuk, we already know exactly why David Melech is going through a difficult time. So let's see the first words. Bevocho mipnei Avshalom beno. Okay, beautiful. What does that mean?
Running away from his son, how depressing is that?
Do you guys know the story of Avshalom?
Vaguely, his son was wanted to overthrow him from a coup.
So just quickly, Avshalom was the daughter of one of the wives. If I'm not mistaken, it's Hagit. I'm not mistaken, I'm almost positive. But one of his wives, who was an Eshet Yifat Toar, who David Melech took in captivity, and he was with her, and she became pregnant. And Chazal, according to a few opinions in the Gemara, he was a ben sorer umoreh, because that's why immediately after the parasha of Ki tetzeh lechama levecha, of the parasha of Eshet Yifat Toar, the next parasha is what? Ben sorer umoreh. The Gemara says, Lama nismecha parashat Eshet Yifat Toar leben sorer umoreh, to teach you that when a person takes a woman that's Eshet Yifat Toar in captivity of war, and she becomes pregnant, the kid who's going to come will be a ben sorer umoreh. So one of the kids who was born, was Avshalom. Avshalom, it's in Shmuel Bet. There's a lot to read about Avshalom. I want to read one pasuk that really this Mizmor, the Gemara and Brachot, which we're going to see inside, Chazal from their eyes are telling us exactly where David HaMelech was when he wrote this Mizmor. So you don't have that on every Mizmor. You have Chazal teach us based on this first pasuk. Bevocho mipnei Avshalom beno. So if you look in Shemuel Bet, there are psukim that discuss David HaMelech's running away, and there's a Mizmor there that says that he cries, and that explains why it says Mizmor le David, because he was sad. And in that Mizmor, I'll read it. V'David ole b'ma'aleh hazeitim. He's going up a mountain on Har HaZeitim. Ole uboche. He's going up and crying. Verosh lo hafui. And his head is down like a mourner, like someone who's literally eulogizing. V'hu olech yachef. He's walking barefoot. V'chol ha'am asher yito chafu Ish rosho v'alu alo uvacho. And all the members walking with him are walking depressed and very sad. At this moment, David Melech takes out his kinor, he takes out his harp, and he starts doing a kumzitz. He starts jamming, and then he becomes from Mizmor to Mizmor LeDavid, bevocho mipnei Avshalom beno.
It's insane how like goofy we make singing, but it's such an incredibly powerful concept in Judaism.
If you want, I actually have beautiful Ma'anim Mekomot. Maybe later you could go over it. Look at the third page, just quickly. Page 3. Just because you mentioned, I mentioned to you before that the Gaon Vilna says that if it were the highest spiritual level that a person could get spiritually in this world is through Torah learning. After Torah learning, the most spiritual thing in the world is music, and that is the highest a person can get through in spirituality is through music. Of course, after Torah and Tefillah. So if you look on the bottom right. נגינה ושירה בתפילה. בגמרא מבואר שהשכינה שורה מתוך שמחה. In the Gemara we just learned, we see that the Shekhinah only rests upon a person who's happy. והדרך לעורר את השמחה היא על ידי שירה וניגון. The way to awaken happiness is through singing and playing instruments. שנאמר, ואתה כיכו לי מנגן, go get a musician, והיה כמנגן המנגן, when the musician plays his instrument, ותהי עליו יד השם. The hand of God, the presence of God will be upon him. כתב במורה נבוכים, הוא wrote מורה נבוכים? רמב"ם, very good. בטעם הדבר, שבן לוי נפסל לעבודת בית המקדש בקול, if a Levi does not have a good voice, he is disqualified.
Send this to Brian.
Yeah, so...
send it to Michal, actually. I'll send it to Brian.
Brian says that his wife always tells him that he's pursued for Beit HaMikdash. I disagree. I think he's eligible.
He's a smart guy.
He is. I was actually going to text him tonight.
I saw them on Harding together.
So he says, why is a Ben Levi disqualified from singing? When he doesn't have a pleasant voice. The intent a person has when singing. A person, the influence that he gets and the inspiration he could get through hearing a melody, through hearing a song that is inspiring. A person does not get inspiration through music unless it's a lahan, it's a tune that sits well, that he enjoys. And especially when they have instruments with it. So therefore, if the Levi doesn't have a proper voice, he's disqualified because he's going to ruin that inspiration for others. So therefore he's disqualified because that's lacking in Avodat Hashem. בספר החינוך כתב שאדם מאותו בעל חומר, because a human being is made out of a very physical element, צריך התעוררות גדולה אל הדברים. He has to find something very uplifting to awaken his soul. כי מצד הטבע, because a person's physical, natural components, אם לא יהיה דבר המעורר אותו, יעמוד כהשם. If he doesn't have something to wake him up, he's just going to sleep through life. ואין דבר שעוררו כמו קולות הניגון. כמו שידוע הדבר. So there's nothing that will inspire and awake a person. I printed this just for you. I thought you would really enjoy it. But we see the power of music. You can look at it later. There's more. That are beautiful. Alright, you ready? Now we have to see what's going on here in this Mizmor. So David is running from Avshalom. So just quick history about Avshalom. Avshalom, we said who he was and how he was born. Avshalom was power hungry. He wanted to take the kingship from David HaMelech. And what he did is he literally split the kingship and he went to Achitophel, which was literally the advisor of David HaMelech. He went to Shimi ben Gera, who was Rosh HaSanhedrin. He went to Doeg Edomi.
You know what it says here?
Yeah.
On that topic, it says that many important leaders, wise or powerful men, joined Avshalom's revolt out of envy of David to take revenge upon him. Only very few people remained with David.
Right. So
the most prominent being Yoav, Avishai, and Ittai, Agiti. Meaning, Meaning the whole world,
everyone abandoned him.
everyone who had respect from the community.
That's actually the pasuk I read, that he was crying and walking with those people with him. That's why.
I just sent this to my brother-in-law Abishai. Said they're named after a heavy hitter.
So, but these weren't simple people. He has literally the Rosh Sanhedrin. He has Gdolei Ador, members of the Sanhedrin. Shimi ben Gera was a giant, Rosh Sanhedrin, and he had Achitophel, the advisor of the king. Everybody literally turned on David HaMelech, and so much so that a majority of the people of Klal Yisrael left David HaMelech and went after his son Avshalom.
Well, this is a very challenging concept.
Yes.
Because there's so much pressure in every generation. There's pressure, but in the religious Jewish community, there's something called herd mentality, where it's wait a minute, this community leader, this person, so we have to do it, and then on top of that you have a concept of cherem, and if you don't do it, then you're outcast. This concept here, I think sheds light on it's really not so simple just to say all the leaders or a lot of the leaders say go this direction. This needs to be learned more. What do we learn from David, this sugya with David and Avshalom, that allows us to differentiate between leaders that just say this and we have to follow, and no, right is right, even if it's high pressure.
Right. So unfortunately, I don't like sharing these words, but I'll share them with you. The Shefa Chaim, Admor Mitzan's Kloisenberger Rebbe, he's a very holy Jew. He survived the entire Holocaust, the one who opened Laniado, the hospital in Netanya. So he says that in the days of Mashiach, and he writes already in his days, talking about 20, 30 years ago already, he writes that a majority of the leaders of Klal Yisrael will be led by Rosh HaSitra Acha. You know what that means?
So the head of
the Sitra Acha. There's the side of Kedusha, of holiness and purity, meaning God's team, and then there's the Sitra Acha,
the other team.
and he says rabbis and leaders and heads of communities, that's what he writes. Hashem Echem. He writes, will be led by people that are power hungry, money hungry, and have zero to close to none of Yirat Shamayim. And that's what he writes. And Hashem Echem,
He says majority?
he says an extreme amount.
Wow.
And he says that the first thing Mashiach will do, the pasuk says that it says v'yaricho yirat Hashem. He will come and smell the yirat shamayim on a person, and he'll be able to smell the disgust of sins on people. Hashem Yachim. That's what he writes. Hashem Etzim. I don't want to say. He adds one line that I'm not going to mention, but anyways, he speaks about it many times, and he has a book called Shefa Chaim, an incredible book. And he's not scared of anybody. He says the truth and whatever he has to say. And he writes crazy things. Also about America. He speaks about America.
Oh, I know what pasuk you were going to say.
Adol HaMelech? Better yet?
No.
Oh, he writes that. He says that instead of saying Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, they're going to be screaming Adol HaMelech. He says just like Paro's whip would beat and make people work, he says that's how the dollar will whip people and make them do what they say. That's what he says.
What's happening now?
Much the way it's unfolded.
It's happening last.
He wrote this a long time ago. He was extremely religious.
But you see this, I mean, this is
It's crazy, right? It's very scary.
It's what the Gemara said, that some of it's for him, some of it's for us, for today. We're living this.
It's crazy. But, so we didn't even start the Mizmor. You have a few more minutes, yes?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even start.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't. Now we're going to get into it.
Great, this has been one of the better weeks.
Go to Mizmor.
Like this book.
Go here.
I'm glad you like it.
Zayin Amud Bet. Brachot. This Gemara is mamash incredible.
Maybe you could invite Rabbi Did 1 week.
Fine, I'll have a crumble, fine.
I need it. Wake up a little bit.
So bad.
You didn't have any birthday cake. You could have this one.
Please have one.
I had birthday cake.
No, come on.
Is it a cookie or a shakal?
Bless Shakol on the top. You already blessed Shakol. So bless Mezonot on the bottom.
Amen.
Amen. Zayin Amud Bet. So really, this Gemara is the entire. This is the theme of this Mizmor, and this is everything behind this Mizmor is right here in these words. So if you see where the lines get a little bit wider, on the left side, 3 lines down. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan. 2 dots there. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Kasher tarbut ra'a betoch beito shel adam. When a person has a bad tribe or a kid in his own house who goes off the derech or acts up in a bad way, it's worse for a person yoter mimilchemet Gog uMagog. That is, it's worse and it's a harder difficulty to bear than going through and experiencing the war of Gog uMagog. Do you understand what Gog uMagog is? I don't think we all understand what that is. Imagine how terrible October 7th was. The difficulty on the day of Simchat Torah. Gog uMagog, the way Chazal describe it, is something that's unfathomable. And that difficulty that everybody had, that bitter feeling at that moment, when we heard about it and we started understanding, that comes nowhere near the feeling of a person having a kid who is not, God forbid, b'derech Hashem. Shneimar, where did you learn this from? Mizmor leDavid bevarcho mipnei Avshalom beno. This Mizmor. The Mizmor of David when he runs away from his son Avshalom. V'ktiv batre, the next pasuk immediately says, Hashem, ma rabu tzarai, Hashem, how difficult and how many opposers and enemies are chasing me. Rabim kamim alai. Many people are standing up against me. So that's what he says in Mizmor Gimel of Tehillim about his son going after derech and chasing after him. Vilu gabem milchemet Gog uMagog. And in regards to milchemet Gog uMagog, we actually learned this in Mizmor Bet, the last Mizmor we learned 2 weeks ago. It says, Ktiv, Lama ragshu goim ulehumim yehegu rik. What does that mean? Why are the enemies making up so much noise and such a turmoil over nothing? That's what David Melech says when he addresses Gog uMagog. Lama ragshu goim, like what are you guys getting all excited about and making so much noise talking about Am Yisrael? That's what the Goyim will say. Why do the nations gather and all the nations of the world talk in vain? So that's what he speaks about. That's how David Melech refers to Gog uMagog. Mizmor Bet.
That's part of Gog uMagog?
Yes.
Almost sounds like we're in it.
All right, we spoke about it, about when all the nations speak about Am Yisrael. That's what we saw in Mizmor Bet. So, and the Gemara says, Ve'ilu, it doesn't say there, Marabut Sarai, Loktiv, Rabim Kamim Alai, it doesn't say that. So we see that David Melech felt that this difficulty he's going through right now is worse than Gog uMagog.
Interesting.
Which is a crazy thing to fathom, to understand. When a person has, God forbid, Bar Minan, Lo Aleinu Lo Alechem, a kid that is off the derech, the kid is forget about derech, but just has no character, he acts with no respect to the parents.
Yeah. How
difficult it is for the parents to bear such a tragedy. Right? That's one concept that David Melech teaches here. Next one, and this is what we really wanted to see. Mizmor leDavid bevarcho mipnei Avshalom beno. The Psalms of David HaMelech when he's running away from Avshalom his son. Asks the Gemara, Mizmor leDavid, the songs of David, Kina leDavid mibaile. He should have sang a lamentation. What does that mean? He started singing a song. Mizmor leDavid bevarcho mipnei Avshalom beno. What are you singing? His son is chasing after him. His son literally wants to kill him. And what does he do? He starts singing HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Why do we say that it's pshat that he was singing the whole thing?
Mizmor leDavid.
Okay, maybe he sang and then he wrote this.
But he sang the words. There's no Shekhinah without song. For it to be Mizmor leDavid, that's why. We just learned that introduction.
Maybe this wasn't necessary. Maybe he...
Chas v'shalom.
Maybe he sang and he got in a good state and then he wrote.
Mizmor leDavid, rule. You see that as an introductory statement. He's sad, but leDavid, Mizmor leDavid. Once you see leDavid, who's David? David's Bar Ruach HaKodesh. He has Ruach HaKodesh. There's a preface to have Ruach HaKodesh. What is it?
Happiness.
To be happy. If you don't have happiness, alamak habibi. No
You're saying
Shekhinah.
whether or not he's saying this, he was obviously happy.
He was happy.
Right.
And therefore the word Mizmor LeDavid is Kepshuto. He's singing to Hashem. Why? The Gemara says, I don't understand. Why is he singing? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon ben Avshalom. Interesting, right?
Very.
The son of Avshalom. Says, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Avshalom, says about Mizmor LeDavid, Bevorcho mipnei Avshalom. Beno. Interesting that this is the rabbi who says it.
Avshalom, no?
Avshalom, yes. Okay. Right.
Same thing.
Mashal lema davar domeh. He says, I'll answer you with a parable. Le'adam she'atza alav shtar chov. A person who has a debt. He has a very, very great debt, and he has to pay it up. Kodem she'parao haya atzev. Prior to paying that debt, he was extremely sad. He was very bothered and troubled. Lachar she'parao, after he paid his debt, samach. What happens? He pays his debt. Thank you, Hashem. What does that have to do with David HaMelech? Says the Gemara.
Oh, he thought that's it. He cashed in his check.
Afkan, David. Same thing happened with David HaMelech. Kevan shamar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hineni makim alecha ra'a mi beitecha. Pasuk Tetzayin. If you see this, Ko amar Adonai. This is Shmuel Bet. Hineni makim alecha ra'a mi beitecha. ולקחתי את נשיך לעיניך ונתתי לרעך ושכב עם נשיך לעיני השמש הזאת. בר מינן. One of his kids slept with his mother, with David HaMelech's wife. One of the kids of David HaMelech. And when was David HaMelech, when did he get this curse? So although Chazal teach us that כל האומר שדוד חטא אינו אלא טועה, someone who says that David HaMelech sinned with the sin of Bathsheba, he's mistaken. But obviously on a level, on David HaMelech's level, there was something off with what happened with Bathsheba. And the opposite, if you look through the Hashkafa of Chazal, you have to understand really what the sin was. Because he was allowed to, and he
knew that
Uriah Hitti gave her a get chitut, and she was vacant, she was allowed to, and she was mi'odet la misheshet eme bereshit.
Also, he did a chesed to her husband because he was supposed to get mitah.
Right. So, but regardless, he was punished. And Natan HaNavi comes to him and says these words. And Natan HaNavi tells him that in the name of God, that Hashem will spring a person upon him from his home. Someone will come up against him and rebel against him, and take his wives and will put him through Gehenna. A lot of difficulty. So he had that as a nivuah from Natan HaNavi for years. For a long period of time.
And he was freaking out in anticipation.
And he has a shtachov. He has a debt and he has to pay. He's not sure how he's going to have to pay it up. So what happens?
The anticipation is worse than the reality.
When he sees his son Avshalom chasing him and he says, Ishtabah Shemolad, I know I had to pay a debt, but now that I know the debt is just my son, Ishtabah Habu'elad, thank God. Why? Says the Gemara, continue the Gemara. The Navi says to him that he's going to have a difficulty and be afflicted from his own home. Hayatzev, he was sad, he had a debt. Amar Shema Eved or Mamzer. Velo Chais Alai. Maybe it will be an Eved, a slave, or it will be a Mamzer, a bastard who will come against him, who have terrible midot, and will have no mercy upon David HaMelech. Kevan dechaza de Avshalom. Once he realized and saw, oh, it's just Avshalom. What happened? Samach. Mishumachi amar mizmor. So once he saw it was his own son, he was happy. He said, okay, my son will have mercy.
Whoa.
So this is hard to swallow. You have a question?
No, I mean, it's just a whole crazy story.
I would think the exact opposite, to be quite honest. A person has somebody chasing him. We just said it's worse than Milchemet Gog uMagog. Even if it was external to him, forget about the kid not doing anything to him. Imagine a person's son, God forbid, goes and sleeps with Eshet Ish, goes and he's trying to kill another person, another Jew. How would the father feel? Heartbroken, terrible. That's already worse than Milchemet Gog uMagog. The Gemara is saying this regardless. But now, not only that, you add, he's also chasing over after his own father. He literally grew and fed and raised and was mechanech. And now he goes against him and chases after him with weapons. literally he's carrying spears, weapons, guns, whatever it is, chasing after his father.
And he rallied the whole world around him also.
Right. And then, what does that do?
So it's crazy. But why was he happy that it was Dafka Avshalom? Because then Midot? Because he knew that he would be...
So the Gemara is saying that because he sees that eventually he'll be comforted. So, meaning eventually he'll have mercy on him if he has to. If he has the opportunity to kill him, he'll have mercy, he won't kill him. When it's somebody else who's vicious and cruel...
But what do you mean somebody else? Hashem said it would be someone from his house.
Right, but it could have been a slave, or it could have been a mamzer, someone who works in his house, someone who he fed, not necessarily one of his kids. Once he saw it was his kid, he said, thank God. And he sang to Hashem. So the Zohar Kadosh says that he felt that this was his kapara for the sin of Bathsheba, and therefore he felt relief that these isurim are mechaper, and that's why he sang a song. The Gemara here is saying the fact that he was comforted. This Gemara is incredible. Like, literally, it's his son, the Mizmor. His son is chasing after him, wants to kill him, and what does the David do? He just goes and starts singing songs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's mamash. It's mind blowing to understand that a person could go through such a difficulty, and see with positive energy, see with a positive light, so much so that he's willing to start singing, and he got to a level that he literally has Ruach HaKodesh. He has Ruach HaKodesh, he's singing. So now we have to relearn the Mizmor one more time with the understanding that this Mizmor was all about Avshalom. So we knew that, but now let's see a little bit more. Hashem ma'abu tzarai. Hashem, how difficult his oppressors, how numerous the tormentors against him are. Rabim kamim alai, many people stand against him trying to kill him. Rabim omrim lenafshi en yeshuata lo be'elohim sela. So,
you know what the tone,
yeah,
the tone that I feel like I'm seeing on these two psukim, just my very basic elementary eyes.
Yeah.
He keeps mentioning quantity. Rabim, Rabu, right? He keeps.
Right.
It's almost like him saying
3 times.
But he's saying, like, I know that right now I'm outnumbered. Like, there's the populace that's against me. You know what I mean? He's not saying Hashem ma kashet tzarai. Not saying how hard my sufferings have been. He's saying how numerous. Like, there's this concept of, you know what I mean?
Beautiful. So actually, I think the reason he's doing that is there's a pasuk. Remember when we learned in Parashat, I mentioned the Torah in Vaishlach Yaakov Malachim. So he prepared himself for 3 things, and when he met, he sent first the Bnei Shvachot, and then he put Leah and then Rachel. So the question is, Rashi writes, why? Aharon Chaviv. Why did he put Rachel last? Because she was the most loved. So the classic way to learn that, the pshat, which I think is very difficult to understand, that he loved her the most, so if someone dies, at least she won't. Or should be the last one to die. So that's very difficult to say, because the Gemara says even about yourself, you can't give up somebody's life and say, this guy's life value is better than this person. Who told you your blood is redder than his? That's the words of the Gemara. Mm-hmm. So you can't come and do that. So the Rav Shach brings, and he says that there's a pasuk Shlomo Melech says, Elokim ivakesh nirdaf. Hashem, whenever there's a World Cup or whatever it is, a Super Bowl, and you have to put your money on the team, Hashem loves the underdog. Elokim ivakesh nirdaf. Hashem loves the one who is oppressed, and He always takes his side. So David Melech is pointing out, Hashem Rabim marabu tzarai. Look how many people are coming against me. Rabim kamim alai. So he's showing how oppressed he is, and actually it's going to tie in with the chidush at the end of the Mizmor, that he's actually writing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you have to give me a salvation. You have to save me. You have to protect me.
You put this in the world, this DNA.
Yes.
And you actually see it now in today's day, that the world society always favors the underdog.
Right.
It's in the DNA of the world.
Right, we see it now with the crazy Majnunim.
Yeah, always. The people they feel bad for, the underdog, that's the one, yeah. Wow.
So he says, Rabim omrim lenafshi en yeshuata lo be'elohim sela. Many say to me, you have no Yeshua in God. So why did he say Elokim? So he's now speaking in the perspective of all of these Rabbim who are standing up against him. So why are they saying that David has no chances and God won't give him salvation? Says Rashi HaKadosh, Rashi writes, Lefi sheba al eshet ish, because he sinned with an eshet ish, with Bathsheba, they all say, all right, God left him. That's it. He has no more, God's not on his side anymore. He sinned. So everybody's telling to David, they're literally trying to put down his moral and to put him down and to show him, no, God left you, my friend. Like, that's all you had going for you till now. You don't have that anymore. You sinned, you lost God. Mm-hmm. But what's the Bimel's comeback? Vata Adonai magen ba'adi. But you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are my shield, you're my protector. And they said Elokim, the attribute of justice. The Bimel says, no, not only are you not going to be the attribute of justice, I know, Hashem, that you are my merciful one. You are my shield, you're my protector. You're with me. Kevodi u'merim roshi. You are my glory, you're my honor, you're my respect, and you uplift my head. You give me the ability to walk around with my head up. Now, again, David HaMelech felt depressed. Chazal teach us that he said these words on Mount Zetim. I read you the words before. What does the pasuk say there? What it literally says? V'David oleh b'ma'aleh hazetim oleh u'bocheh v'rosh lo chafui. He's mamash. His head is down. But now what does he say, Hashem? After he's saying a song, his head is no longer down. And what does he say? He says, Hashem, you uplift my head. The pasuk says it twice. He says that his head was down. He's buried. And their heads were down and they're crying. So David HaMelech, at that moment, he felt so down, but he gave himself a musar shmuz. He gave himself a musar shmuz, a big chizuk, and he was mechazek et atzmo to really uplift his moral and able to go on.
It's interesting when it says the word Selah over here. Mm-hmm. It said it's one of the most difficult words to translate in the entire book of Tehillim. The usual translation is forever. However, Radak and even to say the musical instructions rest the singers of the palms, direct them to raise their voice even louder, to really, I guess, while they're singing, to really dig deep and sing more, to get from the sadness to get out of that.
Beautiful. Ani shachafti. So now listen. Pasuk hey. Koli el Adonai ikra. My voice will always call to God. So that we see a beautiful idea also, that at time of difficulty, step one is to uplift yourself and understand no matter who you are, what you did. David HaMelech, his whole life, was worried about the sin of Bathsheba. Chazal teaches that he died still worried, thinking, not knowing what's going to happen. Will I go to Olam Haba? Will I not? And in the Beit HaMikdash, when Shlomo HaMelech built it, Chazal teaches when we get to Mizmor Chavdal, we'll learn that Midrash, it's Gemara and Shabbat, that they say that literally the gates of the Beit HaMikdash chased after Shlomo HaMelech, and only when he said, I'm the son of David HaMelech, only then they opened for him.
Right,
and everyone heard a heavenly voice that's saying that it was only in the Zechut of David HaMelech.
Right.
So only then did they really know. For years, I don't know when it happened, how old David HaMelech was, but he passed away at the age of 70, and then Shlomo HaMelech built the Beit HaMikdash. So for years upon years, people went around thinking maybe the HaMelech has no Olam Haba. Like he says, he has no help from God. God will not give him salvation.
It's crazy that Shlomo HaMelech was accepted as king.
Why is that crazy?
I mean, like, it almost feels like at that point, there would have been like a complete overthrow of the kingdom. Like no one from David HaMelech should be king next. Like these leaders of the community or whatever, leaders of the Jewish people at the time, they obviously felt enough confidence to go against David HaMelech in general. And when Avshalom was killed, I mean, did they take that as like what, validation of David HaMelech?
When Avshalom was killed, so yeah, they did change. A lot of people went back to him. That's in Perek Tet Vav. In the next chapter, actually he wasn't killed there. He was killed in the next chapter after that. You know how he was killed. His hair got stuck to a tree, and even then, David HaMelech literally was when one of the messengers, Ahimatz, he ran quick, and he came to tell David the good news. And David says, "You're running to tell me bad news. Like, what are you doing? You don't run." Chazal learn you should never be the bearer of bad news. From there, the Melech criticized it. And he sat and he cried, and the eulogy of David HaMelech for Avshalom is actually the hesped that, God forbid, Bal Minan. No one should ever go through this. When a father loses a son, the way that David HaMelech said, he said the word Beni 7 times. And Chazal said that he uplifted Avshalom from 7 medurot of Gehinam, which he was there, and he said, Avshalom Beni, Beni, Avshalom Beni, Beni. When he couldn't take it, he was overwhelmed with hearing about his death, and he said the word Beni 7 times in that pasuk, in one pasuk. And Chazal say that he did it, and he uplifted him from 7 gates of Gehinnom, and he brought him to Gan Eden. So he wasn't even happy about it. That's what a tzaddik he was. But let's continue the Mizmor. Ani shachavti, this pasuk is incredible. Ani shachavti vayishana hakitzoti ki Adonai yismecheni. So the literal translation means, I lay down and went to sleep. Hakitzoti, I woke up. Ki Hashem yismecheni, because God will awaken me. So what does this mean? I lay down, I went to sleep, I woke up. What does that have to do with anything going on here? So Rashi HaKadosh writes that it's not referring to a physical sleep. Rashi HaKadosh writes, if you have Rashi, look. So he says, Ani shachavti vayshana, libi atum b'da'aga upahad. David HaMelech is saying, my heart is literally closed from all sides, filled with fear, anguish, and trepidation. Hakitzati, but what happens? I awake. What does that mean? I wake out of this slumber, and out of my worry. Ki batachti b'Hashem. Why? Ki Hashem yismecheni. That was David HaMelech saying that I usually I have a sense of fear, and I'm worried, and I have different types of things troubling me. But he says, I snap out of it because Hashem, I know you're my savior. So that's the pshat of Rashi. Radak says a beautiful pshat. And listen to this Radak. You have Radak there?
Mm-hmm.
You have Radak. It's you can see it in English if you have it there. I'm not sure if they do. In Hebrew. Ani shachavti vayshana. Shachavti bebetach vayshan beshalom ke'adam she'en lo pachad. Says David HaMelech, an incredible level of bitachon of David HaMelech. I'm able to go to sleep even though I'm going through all of this suffering, this trouble. And Chazal actually teach us that Achitophel's advice to Avshalom was go immediately to go kill your father. Don't wait. And literally David knew that. He knew that his son was after him immediately. He was right next to him. And he was able to go to sleep that night, knowing that every second you have to run, to run for your life is going to maybe allow you to save yourself. But what did David do that night? Literally, he hears. Achitophel gave him advice. It was clear to David, it was public knowledge. You're going today to go kill your father. That was his advice. He was worried, should I kill him or not? Achitophel gave him advice, go do it right now. And he's literally going with Torah giants. Sorry, I forgot to explain that when he says, Rabim kamim alai, Rashi says it means great ones are coming against me, meaning not numerous. Other than the fact that Marabut Sarai, great ones. And Rashi says it's referring to the great leaders of the community. Achitophel, Doeg Adomi, Shimi ben Gera, all of these greats, his son Avshalom, great leaders, inspirational leaders, religious leaders, are coming up against him to try and kill him. So, what does he do that night? He's able to go back to sleep, which is an incredible thing.
Where did we just see that?
We saw it twice. We saw it in Akedat Yitzchak, in Lech Lecha. And what does it say? Vayishkem avam baboker. So Hashem says, Kach et bincha et yechidecha asher avta. And it says, Vayishkem avam baboker. So Rashi writes, the pshat is that he woke up bezrizut and quickly. Brian pointed out beautifully, I love the chidush, that he said, and this is really the source of it, that what does it mean Vayishkem avam baboker? The greatest chidush is that other than the fact that he woke up and he prepared his donkey on his own, although he had helpers and people that could have done it for him, he was able to go to sleep that night, which that shows that even though he was worried, he knows he has to go slaughter his son. He was able to go to sleep as if nothing happened, no bad dreams. Sorry, what were you going to say? I mentioned the other night, I spoke to you about it. Somebody told me that since the tragedy of Simchat Torah, he lives in a place on the border of not Gaza, but a different Arab place where bombs come in daily, he said 6 to 8 times a day. And he said literally every day, he heard the other night, he heard wind, and he woke up from a little wind. He thought like he had to get up and run to a bomb shelter. And he was telling me, he's like, I don't know how to go about this. Like, he has to take his family, his little kids, he says he has 5 or 6 kids, is to pick up his kids and run to a bomb shelter. Now imagine what a person, how his mentally, he's that run, not a walk, it's a run to the bomb shelter.
15 seconds.
They don't have time. What do? How they're mentally supposed to go there. And imagine how your kids watching you are supposed to go about it. So you have to be mentally stable, you have to be mentally healthy. If not, that's going to rub off onto the kids. And they're going to feel that worry and they're going to feel that stress. So all of these things and the way a person goes about this really does influence a person. I said the example of Hatzalah. When Hatzalah gets a call, Moshe Weiss was telling me a beautiful thing, that they're not allowed to run to the call. Because if physically you start running, so mentally a person will start being worried and you're in a rush. There's a story about Rav Gershon Edelstein, Avshalom. Once Rav Gershon, this incredible story, listen to this. Rav Gershon Edelstein, who passed away recently, one of the great Rashi Yeshivot that we just lost. He was once on the way before he was a Rosh Yeshiva, he had to go get a bus, catch a bus, him and his brother. And the bus just arrived to the bus stop, and his brother says, we have to run, like let's go catch the bus, quick, come. He says, I'd rather miss the bus and get late to yeshiva than lose my yeshiva dat for 1 second. Then lose my mental stability and my being relaxed and calm and having bitachon, than just to have to run. You're running to yeshiva. You're running to catch a bus. He says, I'll miss it. Go ahead. I understand if you don't want to, it's okay, but I'm going to stay. And his brother obviously walked with him. They missed the bus, but he look at where he's holding. He said, I don't want to run. Sometimes I'm so you're stressed, you're lack of time, you start running and just mentally you lose it. The Melech says, I'm able to go to sleep. And that's what he's proud of. Ani shachavti vayishana. I laid down, went to sleep immediately. I don't have to take medicine, no drugs, no medical marijuana. What are those pills and drops that people have to take? I don't need none of it. I'm able to go to sleep. Hakitzoti, why? Because I know ki Hashem ismecheni. Hashem is my stability. Hashem is my savior, my protector. He's there with me. Shtabach Shem Olad. Lo yira mivot am. I will not fear the endless nation, the amount of people against me. Asher saviv shatu alai. The people surrounding me. Kuma Adonai Yoshieni Elohai ki kita et kol oivailechi. Shinei Yeshayim shibarta. So here the Rimech says that Kuma Hashem. It's as if he's instructing God. Hashem, stand up and help me. Meaning you have to help me. You have to be there for me. Why? It says the Chafetz Chaim about Mizmor Lamed Bet of Tehillim, Pasuk Yud. It says in the Pasuk, Rabim achuvim larasha, ve'aboteach b'Adonai, Chesed, Yisovevenu. Rabim achuvim larasha. Many afflictions afflict the wicked man. Ve'aboteach b'Hashem, Chesed Yisovevenu. But the person who puts his trust in God, the kindness and mercy of God surrounds him constantly. So the Ramban says that the end of the pasuk is going out from the beginning. Doesn't mean Rabim Achovim Narasha, Hashem brings many affliction to a wicked man, and someone else, Haboteach B'Hashem, the mercy of God surrounds him. He says, Ve'aboteach, there's a Vav. The Vav is coming to go back, to connect the end of the pasuk to the beginning. Meaning even that wicked man who is being afflicted because of his sins, if he has bitachon in Hashem, Hashem will give him salvation. So the Rimmer is teaching us a chidush here in bitachon, that the fact that you're able to put bitachon in Hashem, that within itself is already the vessel for you to be fitting to receive the salvation of God. That's what he's saying. Kuma Hashem, please Hashem, stand up and bring me my salvation. Hoshieni Elohai. Why? Ki kita kol evailecha. You are the one who strikes the cheekbone of all of my enemies. Shinei Yeshayim shibarta. You break the teeth of my enemies, of the wicked. Chazal Doresh, that the teeth of Esav Hashem broke when he tried to bite Yaakov Avinu, and the teeth of Og Melech HaBashan when he came to fight against Moshe Rabbeinu. And David Melech concludes and says, La Hashem HaYeshua alamecha b'chatecha selah. The salvation is to God, meaning however Hashem wants to bring the salvation, He will do. You don't have to give Hashem advice how to bring himself your salvation. Sometimes people try to tell Hashem, I need a paycheck for this and this amount, and I need you to give me this property and this I need to do. You want to be Hashem's advisor. La Hashem Yeshua. Salvation is in the hands of God. However it comes, it's
almost that last pasuk is almost a response to pasuk Gimel. So interesting. רבים אומרים לנפשי, אין ישועתה לא באלוקים סלע. להשם הישועה על עמך ברכתך סלע. It's like first of all it says להשם not Elokim, and the merciful
That's
God.
a response, very good.
And it's almost like a response to that. It's like, now they say this, but let me end off. Hashem.
Beautiful. Esh.
Beautiful. This is awesome.
David HaMelech, the Heilige of David HaMelech. So now you have to give me a bracha. Hazak Baruch Rabotai.